Work. Let's work. Work.
We're in the trenches. Work. Breaking down the defensive line. Work. From technique and fundamentals to NFL and college football analysis. You're listening to Big Dawg Trench Talk.
Work. Work.
What's up, Big Dawg? This is Coach Roll at 5-Star Lineman Academy. Thank you for subscribing and tuning in to another episode of Big Dawg Trench Talk. In our previous episode, we were discussing the question, what makes a great pass rusher? Now, I always like to ask my athletes after a session or sometimes during a session to make sure they're tracking, what was your great takeaway? What was your GT, or what was your great takeaway from that session, from that film session? What did you take away from it? And so for me, from episode 1, my great takeaway was that you have to make sure that you put your attitude before your arsenal. We discussed how it was important to have the skills and the technique and the measurables to be a successful pass rusher. However, you need to ignite all of that. You need to have the right attitude to ignite the vehicle. And so my great takeaway was attitude before arsenal. However, it is important that you develop a certain set of skills, that you develop your set of pass rush moves that will cause you to be successful now that your attitude's in place. Episode number 2, how do you find your arsenal? Let's establish some vocabulary, Big Dawg, so we're on the same page. When I say arsenal, I'm referring to a set of pass rush moves. Now, I'm not just referring to any pass rush moves, but I'm referring to pass rush moves that fit your style of play. These are your pass rush moves, your arsenal. So now the question again is, how do you find your arsenal, or how do you find your set of pass rush moves? The key word for me here is set. There is a set of pass rush moves that work together, depending on your style of play. Depending on your style of play, you should have a set of pass rush moves that you go to every game with, every practice with, that work together for you. When it comes to the art of rushing the passer, I do not believe that pass rush moves work independently. I believe that pass rush moves work dependently. When you're watching a pass rusher in an NFL game or a college game or a high school game, I believe that the pass rush moves that did work were the result of those pass rush moves that might not have worked. I believe that the other pass rush moves have set that pass rusher up for future success. So in other words, the pass rush move that worked played off the one that didn't. I believe that they worked together. For example, you may see a pass rusher bull. Then all of a sudden he comes back with a finesse move. He comes back with a sweep or a quick swim or a cross chop of that sort. Because the pass rusher was bullying on the previous pass downs, it led to a successful finesse rush or a hand attack. And so this is why, to me, it's important to have a set of pass rush moves, depending on your style of play, not one move. I don't think a pass rusher should go to a game or a practice and only thinking about one move as opposed to the set of moves. This is why I say arsenal. Arsenal as in your set of pass rushes. Your set, not your one move, your set of pass rush moves. Now, the wisdom and the art of pass rushing now comes to the question, what is in your arsenal that works well with each other, that actually complements each other, that play off each other well? Now we're talking. Now we're talking about the perfect set of pass rush moves in your arsenal. Those pass rush moves have to play off each other. They have to work well or complement each other well in order for you to have that success. So, point being is that when it comes to choosing pass rush moves or choosing the right arsenal for you, you have to think about a set. Number one, you need to have a go-to, or you need to have a pass rush move that works for you. This is that pass rush that you feel that you're going to win 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, because that's the pass rush move that works for you that nobody can stop. That's when you need that pass rush or that great rush to cause havoc in the backfield, to cause the quarterback to run, to cause that quarterback to throw that ball off the wrong foot, to cause some kind of big play to happen. That's your pass rush move. For me, when I played the game, my pass rush move was my slingshot. I loved the slingshot. Now, it did not matter how big or strong that guy was. For me, if I wanted a sack or a great rush, and I knew that I took the time to set it up, my go-to, now that it was time to get to that quarterback, and now the timing was perfect to attack that offensive lineman, and he was right where I wanted him, I went to my slingshot. That was my move. My other move was catching the hands. Nobody could stop me when I rushed the passer when I caught those hands. That is, to me, like black belt. And if you're talking about karate, you got the different levels of karate or the different belts. For me, catching the hands was like black belt for me. To me, that was mastery. I feel like I couldn't be stopped when I caught his hands. And so, one, you have to have your go-to, that move that you go to in need of a successful rush. What move are you going to go to when you need that rush? The second thing that needs to be in your arsenal, it has to be that setup rush. For me, this rush, the setup rush, requires a little bit more maturity. I take that back. It requires a lot more maturity because this is the rush where you have to be patient. This is the rush where you're setting him up and you're setting yourself up for success. Set up. You're setting him up and you're setting yourself up for success. This requires patience. You may not get the sack on the setup. The setup is not for the sack at that moment. The setup is for the sack later on. Now, I'm not talking about the next quarter. Now, depending on what kind of game you playing, it might just be that. You might have been setting him up and trying to go to your go-to, but you know what? You realize I got to go back to my setup. I got to set him up just a little bit more to get him to believe that that's what I'm going to do majority of the time. So sometimes it may take that. You know, you may play a 4-quarter game and you might get 1 sack, and that's a great game. You know, we've watched Super Bowl games, the last Super Bowl, and you saw that sack in the 4th quarter from the Eagles that changed everything. It came at the right time. It came at the perfect time. I thought it was going to be a sackless Super Bowl. You should have saw me, big dog. I was sad in front of my TV. I'm like, come on. Super Bowl, no sack in a Super Bowl? Not one? Not a half of one? Saw a lot of rushes. Saw a lot of guys get close to the quarterback. But it wasn't no sack. I was sad. Wasn't no sack. Until I was patient and I waited all the way to the 4th quarter, and here it was. Finally, Eagles had the sack right when they needed it. But, man, it took a lot of work that night. Those boys put the work in, and right when they needed it, there was a sack. Well, sometimes that's what your setup does. Your setup may take time. And at the right time, because you've set yourself up for success, there goes your sack. Number 2, the setup move. You have to develop a setup. Number 3, counter rush. You have to have your counter rush. And hopefully if you took the time and you were patient and you sacrificed in your setup, now you've given yourself the opportunity in that window, because the window closes fast sometimes, big dog. You've given yourself the opportunity to counter. Now you counter from what you've been showing him with your setup. So a lot of times people think counter means to go inside. I'm going to counter inside. Yes, counter can mean that you're going to counter back inside if you've been setting him up by going outside. So therefore, that's the counter. You're countering what you did previously. Well, what if you're bullying him? If you are bullying him, then your counter may be to get on and get right off. Your counter may be like a slingshot. A slingshot is where I sold the bull I flipped my hips and got off of him quickly, but I made him think I was bullying him. Your counter may be your bull shed. It's another one of my favorite pass rush moves. Your counter is the opposite of what you've been showing him, what you've been doing. That's your counter. If you've been going in, your counter will be out. If your counter was a bull, now you come back with something fast and quick. If you were setting him up with something fast and quick, now your counter is to come back with something powerful, a power rush. And so sometimes, a coach will say, speed to power, speed to power, speed to power. Well, what about power to speed, power to speed, power to speed? That to me would be considered a counter. And so now in your arsenal, now I haven't necessarily spoken specifically yet to specific moves and how they work and the timing of them. But just make sure you check your arsenal, check your moves, and you should have at least 3 moves, 4 or 5, but at least 3 going into a game or going into practice. 1, you should have your go-to. 2, you should have your setup, and 3, your counter. Now, if I had to put these in order, I would probably say it this way. 1, setup. 2, counter. And 3, now go-to. That would be my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that that's the only way. I've actually trained some of my guys, and I've actually told them, hey, how about you go to your go-to right now? Start them off with your best move and see if he can handle it. If you're a speed rusher, sometimes my advice is to speed off the edge right now on that pass rush. See how fast he is going backwards and you going forward. Make him understand right now that you're a speed guy. Make him move his feet. And then hopefully you set him up with that. Now you can counter off of your speed rush. Now you can sell the speed, turn back in, and bull him. Now we've seen some great pass rushers do that. They'll sell the vertical rush. They'll sell the speed off the edge. All of a sudden, they put that work foot up. For me, work foot is the outside foot. They plant that outside foot. Inside foot's toe to target. All of a sudden, bam! He done put him on his back, and you got your sack. Big dog, I've seen that. Now, why was that successful? Because those 2 moves were perfect complements to each other. They worked dependently. That speed to power worked because the pass rushers sold the speed rush. That's why it worked. And that's what I mean when I say set. To me, there's no perfect order to those set of moves. If you have your go-to, if you have your setup and your counter, if you have those set of moves, you're off to a great start. Now, the beauty of this and the art of rushing the passer is, 1, all those moves complement each other. And you can do all of those moves well. But now, what order do you now approach these? Now that's the art of pass rushing. When you can answer that question, and yes, there are a lot of variables to that answer, depending on who you're going against, depending on that offensive tackle, that offensive guard, that center's weakness, and you begin to now pair your strength with his weakness. Now you're picking the perfect set of moves for your arsenal that game. Now, I'm not saying for every game you have the same set of moves. At a certain point, you should be extremely skilled to where you can do a lot of different things very well. And so going into a game, depending on the guy you're going against, you may have a certain set of moves for that game that's going to cause you to be successful. Now, will your go-to change? Probably not. That's your go-to. But what's going to help complement that go-to is key. Okay, so real quick, 3 important pass rush moves you should have in your arsenal. 1, find your go-to. 2, figure out your setup pass rush move. And 3, make sure you get your counter. You got to have those 3 moves in your arsenal. That is your set of pass rush moves. All right, big dog, let's dig a little deeper into this topic. One of the common challenges that I see with a lot of pass rushers is just that. They are rushing. They're rushing. They're not taking their time, and they're not actually setting themselves up for success because they're rushing, meaning they're not being patient. They're rushing. As opposed to allowing yourself to set yourself up and allowing yourself to set up your go-to move or set up your counters, you're not being patient and you want that sack every single rush. Man, how many of some of the master rushes have we seen sack the quarterback every single time they rush? Now, I know that we've seen guys that were so successful that it felt like every time they rushed the passer, they had a sack, but I've never seen that ever in my life. You may have 30-plus pass rushes in a game, depending on the offense you're playing, and there's never been anybody that has had 30 sacks, over 30 sacks a game. 7, yes. 8, yes. And that's incredible numbers. That's incredible numbers to see a pass rusher have more than 2 sacks that game, especially on the NFL level, because it takes so much work to get those 2 sacks and sacrifice to get those 2 sacks. To see somebody do 3 sacks, 4 sacks, 6 sacks, I mean, that's a beautiful thing to watch. That is, you watched him go to work that night. He earned his paycheck that night. Despite all those zeros he earned all those zeros. And so the question remains, are we taking our time to set ourselves up for success? And this is where I kind of want to put the car in park right here in this topic, in this section of our discussion, is the setup. Are we taking the time to set ourselves up? Are we sacrificing? Are we sacrificing these rushes, our rushes, for the sack? If you get 1 sack a game, you had a spectacular season. You're probably leading the NFL in sacks. You probably the NCAA leader in sacks. You have 1 sack a game. Big dog, it ain't easy getting a sack a game. Have you ever heard the phrase, you get out what you put in? Man, I heard that so many times growing up. And my dad used to tell me, my coaches, you get out what you put in, big dog. What you get out is what you put in. And it's absolutely true. When it comes to the art of rushing, my question to you is, how much did you sacrifice? How much did you put in? And let's talk about that for a second. The setup is so essential to your success. The setup is so essential to your success. Why? Because this is where you play the psychological game when it comes to rushing the passer. What do you mean by Coach Rose psychological? Big dog, what you talking about? I mean is, what are you getting him to believe? Now, fear, F-E-A-R, fear. Fear is a part of the game that defensive linemen often forget is important. Fear is a very important part of the game. If you can get that offensive lineman to fear something, if you can get him to fear something, you are setting yourself up for the opposite of what he's fearing. Fear for me, F-E-A-R, fear for me simply means false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. If you can get that offensive lineman to believe, to have false evidence, it's not true. It's false. But if I can get him to believe that false evidence, and to him it appears real to him, then I can do something different. I'm going to give you 2 different analogies I want you to think about. Chess. Now, I don't know if you play chess. I don't play chess that often, but I used to like to play it a lot because I like to play games that have you think. Games where you have to strategize, where you have to put yourselves in the right position to get what you want. Chess. Let's think about chess for a second. You have all these pieces on the board. And within that, you have to be strategic enough to make the right moves to put yourself in the right spot. Now, there's no telling how many moves you actually have to do before you actually conquer the major piece, before you actually conquer the king and the queen, not the knights, not the bishops, not the pawns, but that king. It may take you, big dog, a lot of moves. Follow me now. It may take you a lot of moves before you can say checkmate. Game over. Sack. You can't move. You can't go nowhere. I got you. Game over. I'm eating. It's over. Checkmate. Sometimes it takes that. In the setup process, think about the game chess, you're making a lot of moves just to put yourself in position to conquer the king. I'm going to say it again. It may take a lot of moves to put yourself in position to conquer the king. How do you conquer the king? You got to be a king to conquer a king, first of all. And second of all, it may take a lot of sacrifices. Big Dog, you probably lost a lot of pieces. You had to sacrifice some pieces in the game of chess to get yourself in position to be successful. That's what I'm saying. You might have had to sacrifice. Matter of fact, I guarantee you that by the time you say checkmate, game over, you didn't have the same amount of pieces you had when the game first started. You some pieces short. I know I said short because I'm from Miami, but I'm going to say it properly. You are some pieces short. I ain't like that. You some pieces short. You know what I'm saying? Because you had to sacrifice. Now, such is rushing the passer. Have you sacrificed enough to make that offensive lineman believe? Now, I've heard coaches say, hey, you got to make him believe it. You got to make him believe it. And so, but for some of them, they're actually saying that in the midst of the rush. And so my thoughts are you saying that that defensive end or that defensive tackle has to make that offensive lineman believe that he's going to do something different within the move? Are you saying that the step before you actually do the move, you should be selling something? Or are you saying that the pass rushes before that is what you already sold him on? That he's going to believe what you're doing now because of what you've done before. Going back to fear. Fear is a type of faith. I know. I'm going to say that again. Fear is a type of faith. False evidence appearing real. I believe in that. I am afraid because I actually think that what could happen will happen. I'm afraid. I am fearful. I am fearful that I'm going to get beat off the edge. I'm afraid that this defensive end is in a wide 9 and he's going to beat me around the corner. He's going to carve the corner. I'm afraid that he's going to beat me off the edge. I'm afraid that he's going to beat me to the spot. Now, because he has fear, what is that offensive lineman going to do? Is he going to change his set? Is he going to overcompensate for what he believes is going to happen? Most of the time, human nature is, yes, I have to protect myself, fight or flight. Now, ain't nobody going to flight because you play football. You're going to fight. But that's the whole purpose of it. I've taken my time setting you up, instilling fear in you, and all of a sudden, you overcompensated for that. You're afraid you're going to get beat off the edge, and you jump me or you overset me. Ooh, I got you. I got you because you was afraid. You overset. You got on top of my pass rush line. All of a sudden, you left the inside wide open. And you do the simplest move. Sometimes you see a pass rusher, they do the easiest move. You're like, man, how did that move work so well? Go back and watch the last 4 or 5 pass rushes. Look at the fear in that offensive lineman and look at what he set himself up to do. He was afraid for the speed rush. So he vertical set. He was light on his feet. He rocked on his heels. He overset him. He did something wrong out of the fear of being beat. But fear is a type of faith. And fear is something that has to be instilled. Now, faith is what you choose, but fear is instilled. Nobody picks fear. Nobody chooses to be afraid. But fear is something that the man across from you can instill in you. You've got to do that. Fear is part of the game. And sometimes we don't take the time to instill fear. The more time you spend in your setup, the sweeter the success. Why is that? Because you're not just a pass rusher. You're a tactician. And I train tacticians in the trenches. I want my dogs to be tacticians. I want them to be strategists. Move, move, move. Checkmate. Boom. Your kings conquer. Fear. It's not right to think that just because I didn't get a sack, I didn't have a good rush. No, I got closer. I instilled fear. I'm making that offensive lineman believe that every time I put my hands in the dirt and I'm going to work on you, I'm getting closer and closer and closer. And it's just first quarter, and I'm getting closer. And you should be telling them, big dog, I don't know if you realize, but I'm getting closer. And it's not right to think that just because you didn't get a sack, that you didn't have a good rush. Tacticians don't think like that. Great chess players don't think like that. A skilled boxer doesn't think like that. Now, I've seen in my time Mike Tyson knock people out in the first round. Forget the first round. I've seen Mike Tyson knock people out in seconds. In seconds. That's rare. You don't always see that. But I also like to see a skilled boxer or a martial artist, because they take their time and they set that guy up for what they want. They're not going in there right away necessarily for the knockout shot. Sometimes they do. Sometimes those guys get in trouble because they take a great risk. But sometimes you have those skilled guys, those guys that are patient. You watch Muhammad Ali. I love Muhammad Ali. God bless him. And he was such a tactician, which to me is why he was one of the greatest of all time. The GOAT. The greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali, when it comes to boxing. Why? Tactician. He was smart. When he wasn't stronger than the guy he was going against, he was smarter than him in his mind, if he wasn't smarter than him with his body. Smart. Strategist. Tactician. And we've got to be the same tacticians. We have to think our way through and make the right decisions when it comes to the art of rushing. Sometimes the mistake is that we're rushing. We have to sometimes settle in number 2, which is that setup move. Make him fear us, make him believe something that we want him to believe. And that's going to take time. But like I said before, eventually, move, move, move. Checkmate. Conquer your king. Now that we've established and laid that ground of fear and how important it is, the next thing is, now that you have your set of moves, they have to start at the nucleus or the core, which is your strength. What is your strength? What are you good at? What are you gifted at? What do you feel that you have that's better than the man across from you? What is your strength? Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me and think that I'm only referring to how strong you are. Yes, that is a strength, your physical strength. But that's not the only strength. There are other strengths. There are tangible and intangible strengths that you can have. For example, are you smart? Are you smarter than the guy across from you? The psychology, your mentality, the decisions you make can be a strength. You can outsmart your opposition. I've done it. Trust me, I've done it. I've gone against guys that were physically stronger than me, but my strength was that I was smarter than them. Are you smarter than the guy across from you? Are you stronger than the guy across from you? Is that your strength? Your strength, your physical strength. Are you tall and long? Are you a long-bodied rusher? Yes, that can be an absolute strength. However, it can be a mistake to consider a tall pass rusher or a defensive lineman as a guaranteed strength. That's not true. Just because you're tall doesn't automatically make you a great pass rusher. Does it help it with your pass rushing? Man, absolutely. If you can use your length and use your height for your advantage, absolutely, it's a strength. If you learn how to use that length, it is an absolute strength. But big dog, let me tell you something. It ain't for me just about how tall you are, but how long you are. I'm going to say it again. It's not about how tall you can stand, but how long you can play. The guys that learn how to use their height and transform it into length do great things. So yes, your length is a strength. But what if you're not tall? What if you're short? Can that be a strength? Absolutely, it can be a strength. You have to learn how to use that strength, or the fact that you're not as long as the guy across from you. Well, it only matters if I'm trying to punch your chest, right? So if I'm trying to touch your chest and you're trying to touch my chest, but your arms are longer than mine, then why am I trying to touch your chest? Can I be quicker than you to my chest plate? Ooh, that's a whole nother discussion. We ain't gonna get into that right now, but that's a whole nother discussion. Am I short? Am I tall? Am I fast? Am I quick? Maybe not fast, but am I quick? Do I have great feet? Do I have quick feet? Do I have quick hands? How's my hand-eye coordination? Do you have great hand-eye coordination? That's a strength. What about your leverage or your flexibility? Do you have great leverage and flexibility? I've heard players say, I got magic ankles. My ankles can bend. That's what helps me to bend corners real tight. That's what helps me to get down real low. Absolutely, that's a strength, your flexibility. Man, you might have great hip mobility. How's your hips? Are you really loose in your hips and you can flip your hips really well, change direction really smooth? Do you have those kind of hips? Are you a flipper? Are you a carver? You see, there's always a strength. There's always a way you can outplay the guy across from you. That's the beauty of football. It's not the same kind of guy that's successful. Go back and look over the past 2-3 decades and tell me if those pass rushers look the same. Absolutely not. Why were they so good? Because they figured out what their strength was. Didn't matter the guy across from them, what he could and could not do. They realized their strength. And when the time came for it, they were stronger than the guy across from them. Once again, I'm not necessarily saying that they were physically stronger than the guy across from them. But they were stronger than them at that moment. They played to their advantage. They out-leveraged the guy across from them because they found out what they had and what he didn't have. I'm saying that one more time. They found out. They were smart enough to find out what they had and what he didn't have. Your strength, big dog, has to be at the core, at the nucleus of your arsenal. In other words, your moves have to play to your strengths. Your moves have to play to your strengths. So, for example, if you are a longer guy, then long arm moves, long arm combos, 2-to-1 quick releases. I'm calling out pass rush moves for guys that are long, for guys that will not allow an offensive lineman to get to his chest plate because he's playing long. Not standing tall, he's playing long. And so what kind of moves would he do? For a guy with quick feet, maybe stutter stepping, maybe cross chopping. Things where you attack the offensive lineman, close the cushion, get tight to the fight, and all of a sudden you're doing something different. Why? Because you got quick feet. You can change directions. You can make the offensive lineman believe you're going one way, and all of a sudden, boom, you change directions on them. Why? Because you got quick feet. Maybe you don't have quick feet. Maybe you're not as agile and versatile as another guy, but you have a great hand-eye coordination. Your hands and eyes work precisely. They are precise in their attack. You are what I call a hand assassin. You don't need a whole lot of feet. You can attack that offensive lineman and see his hands like they moving in slow motion. So you may be a hand combat guy. You may get to him and quick swim him. You may get to him and sweep him. You may get to him and catch his hands because your hand-eye coordination is so good. It'd be a shame for you not to play to that strength. You steady trying to bull rush this guy like everybody else when really you have great hand and eye coordination. What you doing, big dog? You're not playing to your strength. Maybe you're not long, but you powerful. Maybe your best bet is to sell that speed rush, turn your toe to target, and put your helmet right underneath his chin. Maybe that's you. You're a power rusher. You're a strong guy. You like Mike Tyson. You trying to get behind his jab. As soon as you get behind his jab, you hooking up and uppercutting him. What am I talking about? You might be that power ripper. You might be that power clubber. You might be that chop club rip guy. That might be you. That might be your style of play. Coach, I ain't real strong. I ain't strong like them, coach. I don't bench as much as they bench. I don't bench that much. I'm ashamed to tell you how much I bench. Okay? But you're fast. You that fast guy. Matter of fact, you scared yourself. That's why you so fast, because you scared. You afraid if they get their hands on you, they going to throw you like a rag doll. That's okay, big dog. Use your speed. You might be that guy that line up real wide. That guy that speed rushed off the edge. You a speed dipper. You a speed chopper. You a speed sweeper. That might be you. Your speed might be your strength. It'll be a shame for you to try to club a guy, to try to power rip that guy if you know you're not that kind of power guy. Do what you do best. Your arsenal has to complement your strength. And that's why it's so important to first discover who you are. The man that knows who he is, that knows himself, has a greater chance of mastering his environment. When you know you, you can be the best you can be. Sometimes we spend way too much time studying the guy across from us that we do not study ourselves. One of the most important things you ever study is yourself. Study yourself. What is your strength? And now begin to develop those moves that complement your strength and watch yourself become the best pass rusher you've ever been. Stop trying to just mimic moves because it worked for him or them. That may not be your move. Find your weapon of choice. What should be in your arsenal? Who are you? And once you identify what your strength is, what kind of guy you are, then you'll start to make the right choices. You'll be surprised how many guys are not successful at playing in the trenches because they're trying to do something they saw on TV. They're trying to do something somebody posted online. Oh, that move worked, so that's what I'm going to try. Not understanding that that was the move that worked for him. It may not work for you. Sure, go try it. Go try it. Go try the move. You might find your match. However, if you found your match, it wasn't the move. It was because it complemented your strength. Think about that. Really think about what I'm saying. Because sometimes we can get discouraged and feel like we're not going to be successful or can't be productive because we're not producing. Well, if you're not producing, it means you got the wrong tool. If you work with the wrong tool, you're not going to be productive. So choose the perfect tool. What tool is that, coach? Well, find your strength. Who are you? And begin to surround your strength with your arsenals, with your pass rush moves. Man, this topic's got me fired up because I see so many guys make that mistake. And I'm hoping that as coaches, that as athletes, we look in the mirror, start there with our attitude, and begin to create our arsenal with our strength at the core. What a topic. How do you find your pass rush moves? Keyword, your. Favorite part of today, move, move, move. Boom, conquered your king. Thanks for tuning in for another great episode of Big Dawg Trenchtalk. Don't forget to head over to BigDawgFootball.com where you'll find the best D-line content on site. Some of the latest and the greatest pass rush moves we've been referring to in this episode, you'll find them all on BigDawgFootball.com. Join the Big Dawg Football community where our mission is to create some of the best D linemen in the world. All right, Big Dawg, enough talking. It's time to stick your cleats in the dirt and let's go to work.
Work. Work. Work. Work. Work. Let's work.